Hello, welcome to another edition of Baby Boomer Tales. My name is Jim. I'll be your darling host today and every time right now. That's good because it's my show and I'm supposed to be talking. How are you today? Today I want to go back, way back to maybe when I was 7 years old. I was born in 1950, so if you were born in, say, 1946, the beginning of the boomers, you'd have been a little older, like 11, but I know you still can relate. Every Saturday morning, I would wake up with great anticipation. I was going to watch my Saturday morning cartoons and eat some sugar-loaded cereal, sugar bombs and sugar explosions and extra crispy sugar cakes and whatever. All the cereal had little prizes in it, and I love the sugar cereal, I love the prizes, and I'd sit there and I'd watch my Saturday morning cartoons, and hopefully I was good enough to eat my cereal in front of the television, sitting on the floor with my brothers, and later on my little sister, but she's quite a bit younger. And I think my favorite one of all the cartoons was Augie, Doggie, and Doggy Daddy. Do you remember Augie, Doggie, and Doggy Daddy? It was, as far as I can remember, a single dad who was a dog, and his son is probably, I don't know, 10, 12, 13 years old. They'd walk around and have not very exciting adventures, I don't think. And the rhetoric could go something like this. Dear old dad, oh dad, oh dad, what do you think of so-and-so and so-and-so? And Doggy Daddy would say, Augie, my son. And he would explain the question. When I was working in that mine that I spoke about in last episode, I worked with these two guys, and they were like a crew of two, and they would walk around. You'd hear them walking around, and they would do this Augie, Doggy Daddy shtick, and it was really great. And I started calling both of them Augie. Well, for reasons I won't get into right now, there turned out to be a bunch of people we just call Augie. And over time, because the mine had such high turnover, all the Augies left but me. And my nickname became Augie. And everybody except for maybe some of the small town folks I knew forever called me Augie. And when I met the girl that would eventually become my wife, we went out, I say 6 months, it probably wasn't that long, but for quite a while, and she thought my name was Augie. She was shocked when she found out that my name was Jim. So I loved Doggie and Doggy Daddy. It started in 1959. New shows lasted through 62, but I know they were on reruns for longer than that. They were all part of the Quick Draw McGraw show. Remember Quick Draw? Quick Draw and Louie, his little sidekick. Now all these cartoons, all the animals, Quick Draw was a horse, and Louie was a donkey, and just like Augie, Doggie, and Doggy Daddy, they walked around on their hind legs, wore hats and whatever, and you thought they were people, only they were dogs and horses and donkeys and whatever. And their back and forth kind of went like Quick Draw would explain something, and Louie would go, but Quick Draw! He had a Spanish accent. It was pretty good. They were stars of the show, but they also had Augie, Doggie, and Doggy Daddy as a little excerpt on their show. And they had Snooper and Blabber, which I can't really remember too much, but Snooper was a detective and he was a cat, and Blabber was his sidekick and he was a mouse. So before we leave Quick Draw and Louie, the one thing old Quick Draw always said is, I'll do the thinning around here, Louie. but quick draw. Another one of those wonderful Hanna-Barbera shows was Huckleberry Hound. He actually came before Quick Draw, and on his show, he had the Rough and Ready show, and he actually introduced Yogi Bear, Pixie and Dixie, and Mr. Jinx, who I can't remember at all. But old Huck, he wore a little hat, kind of, I think it was turned up in the front, and had a southern gentleman's accent, maybe like he was from the deep south, like Georgia or Alabama. And I remember him as being very polite, and he was blue. I remember that because later on when TV became colored, Huck was blue, and I was shocked. I guess I thought he was dog color. But Huckleberry Hound. But the show that he introduced probably turned into one of the biggest of the Hanna-Barbera, and that was Yogi Bear. He had a little 7 or 8 minute episode every show. That's about all they were, because the shows were a half hour, so each one of them got 7 to 8 minutes plus commercials. And his sidekick was Boo Boo. Hey, Boo Boo. But Yogi. Hey, Boo Boo. Remember that? They'd walk around on their hind legs, and they were bears, and they were in Jellystone Park, and Ranger Smith was always trying to catch them stealing picnic baskets. Yogi was something else. But he went on to stardom later on with his big time movies, and I think if you watch around once in a while, Yogi will still show up. But he didn't hit the scene until 1961, and I was 11 at the time. But I must have still loved Saturday morning cartoons. On Yogi's show, he had a segment with Snagglepuss and a segment with Yakky Doodle, who was a duck. Now Snagglepuss was a mountain lion or some kind of lion. He always kind of reminded me of the Pink Panther, you know what I mean? Dun, 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 dun. But Snagglepuss, I believe, kind of talked like Daffy Duck, a little bit maybe, like had a little bit of a speech thing happening. And I can't remember Yakky Doodle. I cannot remember him. I hope you can, because I can't. He had to be on, though. So Saturday morning was filled with wonders and cartoons. Wonderful, wonderful way to do a Saturday. There are also other things, like shows with people in them, and not just people voices dubbed over cartoon characters walking on their hind legs wearing people clothes. I know animals still wear people clothes. You can tell that by getting on social media. But there were other shows. Bugs Bunny. Now he actually came around in the 40s. But his nemesis, Elmer Fudd. Elmer's always trying to get that wacky wabbit. Bugs would always seem to get the best of him. Woody Woodpecker. He appeared in 1940. He had the Woody Woodpecker Show, though, from 1957 through 58. And that show was amazing. I can only remember watching that in the afternoons. But that show was amazing because Walter Lantz, the creator of Woody, and Woody would do a little routine at the end of the show. So we had real-life Walter Lantz with cartoon character Woody. And I think it was one of the first of that kind until Roger Rabbit. I'm sure there were others, and maybe you can remember them. But I always thought that was kind of amazing that the guy that drew him and created him was Woody's pal. I know I'm not doing these very well, but they sound okay to me. But some of the other Warner Brothers were Daffy Duck, Porky Pig, and Petunia Pig. Petunia, remember Petunia? The Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote, Sylvester and Tweety, Tom and Jerry, and I think because of Tom and Jerry and Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner, people started coming against cartoons saying they were too violent. They were pretty violent, but there was not violence back then like there is. Of course, they'd hit each other over the head with a safe or You know, blow each other up with dynamite or whatever. Whatever it took to get that Roadrunner. Whatever it took to get that mouse. But we always had others. We had Mighty Mouse. Mighty Mouse could fly. Mighty Mouse was the mouse version of Superman. He was probably stronger than Superman because, gosh, he could lift, anything. Houses, fly around with a house. This is a mouse flying around with a house. And then we had Popeye, of course. Popeye the Sailor Man, toot toot, with Olive Oyl and Brutus or Bluto. And Mickey Mouse, he was in there, but I'm not sure he was on Saturday morning back then. Here's one. Rocky and Bullwinkle. Rocky and Bullwinkle started in 1959. Only lasted till 61. And then the Adventures of Rocky, it was Rocky and his friends. And then it morphed into the Adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle and lasted till 64. But we had Boris and Natasha. Remember them? Boris and Natasha. But they also had other segments. They had Dudley Do-Right. Fractured Fairy Tales, which were just great. Fractured Fairy Tales. Mr. Peabody and Sherman. That was a full-length major motion picture that did pretty good, I think. Rocky and the Cold War will last forever in our hearts. Because it really wasn't the Cold War to me. I didn't even understand that yet. Not at 9 years old, I didn't. I just knew that Boris and Natasha were trying to get Moose and Squirrel. There were also some primetime shows that came and probably morphed into Saturday morning later on. But the Jetsons, the Jetsons started out on Sunday night in 1962. Meet George Jetson, Jane, his wife. Also had Elroy and Judy Jetson. They had their dog Astro, their robot maid Rosie. I don't think robots turned into being like Rosie. George's boss, Cosmo Spacely. It did go to Saturday morning in 1963, but it started in 62, primetime. And probably the biggest hit of all, as far as how it went and where they went, was the Flintstones. We had Fred and Barney, Wilma, Betty, Bebbles, Bam Bam. They came a little later. Dino, Mr. Slate at the quarry. Let's hear it from Fred. Yabba Dabba Doo. It started in 1961, prime time. It was a great show. There's so many more. I don't have time to talk about them, and these are the ones I remembered the best. I just wanted to come down a little bit of memory lane when I was a little kid. I'll visit that again someday without the cartoons. You can find us on the web at https://babyboomertales.com. Please visit us. It even has a picture of me on there. We're very happy and very blessed that you've joined us today. My time is done. I want you to remember one thing, and this, I'm speaking to myself. Kindness matters. That's all I can say. I'll see you next time. Hey Rocky, want to see me pull something out of my hat? Oh no, I think I need another hat. This is Augie Doggie saying goodbye.